Be the Good with Kate shows each of us how it is possible to find and follow our passions at any age. But not only that, we can do this while making the world a better place along the way. I'm Kate Chericello, and I'm on a mission to shine a light on the positive news all around us. I hope Be the Good with Kate inspires you to live your purpose and go out and be the good in the world. Guests have included a Broadway music director, ex-convict, hospital clown, nonprofit leaders, people who've lost those closest to them, people who have found their calling in their 60s, and my kindergarten teacher. Join me each week as I have the honor of sharing these stories with you. You can find Be the Good with Kate on all podcast platforms and YouTube. Subscribe there or go to katechericello.com/bethegood to be updated when new episodes are released. Welcome back to Be the Good with Kate. I am so happy to introduce you to Antonio Garrido. He is coming at you from France today. And let me tell you a little bit about him, and then I will let him take it away. Antonio is the author of My Daily Leadership, a powerful roadmap for leadership success, and founder and president of My Daily Leadership, a leadership development organization with a mission to inspire 1 million of the world's best leaders to reach their full potential. And one more piece I want to add before I give it to you, Antonio, is I love one of your favorite quotes. People do not decide their futures. They decide their habits, and their habits decide their futures, by F.M. Alexander. So, Antonio, thanks so much for being here today.
Well, thank you ever so much for the invitation. I'm a big fan of the podcast, so I do appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And as you know, the whole idea of Be the Good with Kate is to help listeners find ways to really uncover what they are passionate about, focus on their purpose, and then hopefully, as they go forward, make a difference along the way. So please tell us more about what it is you're doing right now that is all about your passion.
That's all about my passion. Well, I guess my passion is helping people discover their passion, I suppose. I guess we're similar in that regard. I think in terms of our mission, we kind of, as well as, help 1 million people, which does sound rather grand. And I suppose it is, and nobody's really keeping count, but I think we're reasonably well on our way. How we know we're doing a good job is when we're helping people reach their full potential, whatever that is. And I think that whether you're kind of just a standalone individual who isn't, a leader in any kind of organization, whether you're a solopreneur, whether you're an entrepreneur, or whether you're leading a cast of thousands, we firmly believe that helping people reach their full potential is really what we're about. And in our experience, and with a lot of the research that we've done, people feel frustrated when they feel that there is a big gap between where they are and where their potential is, right? And so what's interesting is we could be coaching an individual who ostensibly, by any kind of normal human measure, somebody would look at them and think, well, they must be doing terribly well, right? Because their revenue starts with a B, not even an M, right? So they're doing billions and the huge organization, and they must be so delighted with themselves. And some of them are, of course, and that's, splendid, but then some of them aren't. And anybody would look at them and think, that guy's got it all. Like, why isn't that guy delighted and every day better than the one that preceded it? It's because they think they're here, but they could be here, right? They still feel that there is a gap between where they are and where they want to be. And then some other people, we find that, they're perfectly happy here because they think that they are close to what their full potential is, right? And so there are people that, the measure of success really has nothing to do with, salary or things that they have, whoever dies with the most toys wins. That's not necessarily the truth. It's just what people are comfortable with. And it's kind of, where does the reality match their expectation? Because disappointment equals reality minus expectation. So those people that are disappointed is because what they have, and it's not quite what they wanted. And then other people, they have everything they want. And some other people, again, could look at them and think, well, that's rather sort of a measly existence, but they have everything they want, and they're to be envied actually. When you kind of get to your happy place, and unfortunately, what we tend to do is link that with things, and we shouldn't. Well, we don't, but people do, right? Kind of the world tends to. So maximizing potential is what we're about, and helping people do that from from wherever they are and wherever they're trying to get to. And it's an interesting journey, and we love to do it, and we love to help people do it. And our weeks are filled with countless aha moments when people kind of reach that moment of insight, and they kind of like suddenly figure it out and everything falls into place. And there aren't enough of those actually, and it's not taught at school. So where does it come from? So I guess, did that answer your question? I do kind of ramble sometimes.
No, I love it. And the aha moments, that's something that I've seen as a trend
Mhm.
throughout having this show. Everyone comes on here, there are usually many aha moments. Sometimes there's that singular one, but usually there's the multiple string of them. And I love what you said about disappointment equals reality minus expectation. I want
Yeah.
everybody to hear that again, sit with it a moment, because it is so true. I love the word perspective.
Yeah.
I love thinking about that, and that all ties in there.
We spend, it's interesting because we also as well help not all of our clients, but a fairly large portion of our clients. We also at times help them identify new leaders or leaders with high potential. Or somebody may say, hey, we need a new CEO, for example, and can you help? So although we're not a recruitment company, we're absolutely not. We're not a headhunter either, but we do sometimes help people find people. And one of the things that we've noticed as a trend, probably in the last maybe 2 or 3 years, is that people are now, when they're putting together their search profile for the kind of people that they're looking for, they include a very woolly and nebulous principle, except we feel that we understand it and we help people understand it too. They're looking for people, leaders with insight. Like, so how do you develop insight? Where does insight come from? Because there are ways to nurture and develop that, but insight seems to be a thing that a lot of companies are looking for at the moment. Those aha moments, and I think where it's come from, although I haven't quite boiled it down, I think largely it's because of the sort of burgeoning rise of AI, which isn't terribly good at insight. They're good with large data and kind of big number management and so on, but in terms of aha moments, computers aren't terribly good at that. Humans tend to be much better. So I think that will turn out to be a point of competitive difference going forward, because hands up, who thinks AI is going away? I mean, like nobody, right? So yeah, I don't know how we got onto this track, but anyway, there you are. Insight.
That was great. And so now I have to hear about how you got to where you are. What gave you the idea to do what you do? Where did it come from? Has it been something your whole life? Was it new? Please share.
So I guess I think it was something my whole life. My father, my dad, you can tell from the name, was Spanish. So my dad's Spanish, my mum's Greek, but my father was a very, very, very uh, well, he was a shepherd from the middle of Spain, and as I describe his story, you're going to think, well, so was your father around in the 1700s? No, like just he's alive today. He's in his 90s. But when he
Wow.
grew up, they were incredibly, incredibly poor. Couldn't read or write, no central heating, no inside lavatory. You get the idea. Incredibly poor. If you fell over and broke your leg, you either died or walked with a limp for the rest of your life. But anyway, so they were shepherds, and they were very, very, very poor. And I think very poor and underprivileged and uh, even persecuted, perhaps, individuals, cultures become very philosophical. It's kind of how they deal with life. So my dad can't read and write, still can't, never went to school, but he had a very odd way of looking at the world, and that was his way of looking at the world was the way that he kind of inculcated all of his kind of children. So we share a philosophy that perhaps doesn't quite make sense. So I'll explain what that means in a second. So my dad will say something which is very much makes sense to him, but to a rational human being probably doesn't. But then when you think about it, maybe it does. So I'll just give you a dumb example, then I will answer your question. So my dad will look at coincidences where we would say, gosh, fancy that, fancy bumping into somebody that I hadn't seen for 4 years and I was only talking about him the other day, right? So we see those kind of things all the time. And my dad would just very casually go, yeah, that's because 1 in a million chances happen 9 times out of 10. Right. So it kind of like has this very bizarre way of looking at the world. But anyway, to answer your question, he would always tell us. So originally, when a million years ago, when probably in the Paleolithic age, when I came out of university, I was an architect. So a million years ago, I was an architect. So I was an architect. I suspect now, all of these years later, that I probably wasn't a terribly good architect, or at least I found architecture a little disappointing. Come back to this potential thing, right? Because I imagined when I came out of university, all I would do was design cathedrals and museums and theaters and airports. And, some do, right? If you happen to be Richard Rogers, everybody else is sort of designing Mrs. Miggins's kitchen extension. So, and I was doing that and just like, is this kind of what I had in mind for myself? So I was an architect doing that for a while, and I met a chap who offered me a job. And I don't even know how, well, I know how I met him, but I don't know how the stars contrived to have us meet. I guess 1 in a million chances happen 9 times out of 10. And he offered me a job running a drawing department, a design department for his organization, which really shouldn't have happened, but it did, and it was quite good. But he was one of the most inspirational leaders I ever worked for. So I started working for this chap, and he was a natural, tremendous leader. And I started watching the way that he operated and how people followed him and how he managed to create such dedication and determination and drive and ambition from his people. And I thought, well, that's what I want to be. I want to be that guy. I want to be that guy. And I'm not sure that could ever happen. Anyway, this chap kept promoting me every 5 minutes. I'm not entirely sure why. I did ask him once. We talk about it in the book. So if you want to know that story, read the book. But he came to me one day then and said, hey, listen, I think you should go back to university. I don't think you should run the drawing office anymore. I think you should run one of our divisions. And I said, university for what? He said, I think you need to do like an MBA in strategic business management or something like that, because you're an architect and you're not trained in running an organization. So we'll pay, you go back to university. And when you've done that, come back and we'll give you, I think he gave me Europe for this organization. So my second degree, to answer your question, was in strategic market management. Anyway, let's come back to my dad. So one of my dad's expressions, for years, he would say to me, in as much as you should run your own business, was kind of what he wanted to say. The way that he verbalized that in his own inimitable way, talking about how it's better to have your own business, even if it's only small, than to run somebody else's business, even if it's very big. And the way that he described that was, it's better to be the head of a mouse than the tail of a lion. And he would constantly say to me, yeah, being the tail of a lion's okay, but it's better to be the head of a mouse, right? And so always kind of gave me, because he ran his own businesses, my point, small businesses, restaurants, and considering where he came from, where he ended up, it's like Richard Branson, right, in terms of relative differential. So I worked for lots of companies. I found myself, honestly, Kate, much more by luck than judgment. I ended up running what you might call 4 Fortune 60 companies with thousands of employees and billions in revenue. So just kept kind of moving up that career ladder, whilst ever my dad was saying, better to be the head of a mouse than the tail of a lion. So then about 12 years ago, we were about to be empty nesters. And so we have 4 children. And we decided, let's go and sort of semi-retire. Where do we know that's rather groovy and fab and pretty cool and exotic? Miami. Let's go and live in Miami. So we said to the kids, ta-ta, we're going to go and live in Miami. Come and visit whenever you like. And we wasn't quite that. We bought them somewhere to live and all of that stuff. But your government weren't so keen on strangers coming along and just making America, not legally at any rate, their home. So we bought a business. And I thought, okay, I'm going to be the head of a mouse then, right? So I'm going to buy a small business and I'm going to be that thing. And I've done it for other people. Surely I can do it for myself. But so to answer your question, which is a good question, and I'm really struggling to answer it in any kind of succinct way, is that I've always worked for them, just the most phenomenal leaders. I've been incredibly interested in leadership. We have been coaching leaders for 12 or 13 years. Wrote this book, started a whole new business on the back of it. And so my purpose kind of, it took about 40 years to unravel, to reveal itself. But for sure, what we're doing in terms of helping people reach their full potential, helping people grow and sustain and leverage businesses, helping them be the most successful, insert lawyer, accountant, architect, CEO. That's what we do. And really just taken the best of the best of the best, and we codified it into a model of leadership and management. You could go to any Barnes and Noble, you go to the business section, and there's miles upon miles upon miles of leadership books and management books and all that kind of stuff. We kind of wrapped it up into a model that we thought was pretty fab and groovy, showed a few hundred leaders and asked them what they thought, and they thought it was terrific. And on the back of that, wrote this book, I guess.
Excellent. And I think that's important to point out again. You said it took you 40 years to unravel your purpose and passion. And there's so often, our whole society is about quick fixes. So that reminder of you just have to keep searching and you will get there. You kept yourself so open to everything along the way. And I have to ask you, is there something that surprises you the most about where you are right now?
I'll tell you that in a second. But just to make a point about your point, that I wouldn't want anybody to think that for those 30 or 40 years, I was in any way miserable, because I wasn't in the least. But I knew that that we had a wider story to tell, and we could help more people. So here's what delights us, and we are constantly, as an organization, with both organizations, we're constantly asking people for critique. People tend to shy away from doing that because they somehow think that critique is criticism, that it's not the same thing at all. So we're constantly asking for critique. We're constantly measuring ourselves against a standard that we just kind of, forgive me because it's a British brand, I suppose. We're constantly saying, is it Bentley? Is what we're doing Bentley? Is this Bentley? So we kind of measure ourselves against this measure, and we're consistently trying to measure ourselves against it. And are we, best in class? And if we want to be best in class, then best in class means it requires of us certain things. And so we're constantly measuring to be best in class. So I wasn't miserable for all of the time, but
it's all part of the journey and all of it.
For sure. But when we started the business in Miami and realized how many people we could help, I am more humble than this sounds, but we love it when we help people, and they tell us every day that we do. So that's our purpose, is, I think, to help people. And if that is your purpose and you want to help people, then help a lot of them. That's where 1 million came from. so that's how that works. Yeah.
Excellent. And going along with that, do you have any advice for someone who feels stuck in finding their passion and purpose?
So I think that the challenge is depending on who you are and where you are in an organization, whether you're a kind of solopreneur or whether you're working for a large organization, it's hard to get the truth. I'll often say to a CEO, or any of our clients, we say to them all when we first start, what percentage of the time do you think your people tell you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? And it's not 100%, right? It's somewhere south of 100%. Neither is it zero, by the way, but it's not 100%. What they tend to tell us is a version of the truth that they think it's in their best interest to have us believe. I was talking to a chap 5 or 6 years ago before I wrote my first book, and I said, how do I get to talk to somebody at the FBI? And he said, oh, that's really easy. Just go into any bank with a sawn-off shotgun and they'll turn up. You won't have to wait very long, right? So, but I knew that the FBI were good at getting to the truth, right? That's what their job is, to try and figure out the truth. And when you look, because it's nothing like on TV, but when you kind of start to figure out how to get to the truth, it's not too long before you come to the realization, and we construct it in a way such that it happens. We don't often tell ourselves the truth either. So people aren't telling us the truth. We have 30,000, 40 or 50,000 thoughts a day, and most of them are negative. The way that we speak to ourselves isn't, if a friend spoke to us that way, we'd disown them, right? Or, a family member or whatever. So we have this issue of truth. We have this issue of self-awareness. Nobody will, in your organization, I don't know how many people work for you, but when was the last time that somebody came to you and knocked on your door and say, hey, you got 5 minutes? And you'll go, yeah. And they go, great. I just wanted to say, I've been watching your performance over the last 6 months, and I think you're dreadful in every single regard. I mean, that's never happened, right? Because people tend to not tell you the truth. So what does that mean? That means self-awareness is fairly low throughout the world, right? And you can just look at any kind of research, and there's stacks of it. Just Google confirmation bias, and you'll see how we fool ourselves consistently with our beliefs in the world. Well, the problem with self-awareness, with it being low, how do you fix it? I did a talk for 400 leaders, about 400 leaders, a couple of years ago. In fact, it was more than that now. It was just before COVID. Just before COVID, 400 leaders. And I said, by a show of hands, who here has no blind spots? So who has no leadership blind spots? And thankfully, nobody put their hands. I think a couple of them were tempted to, but they looked around the room and nobody else had, so they kept theirs, right? So everybody recognized that they must have some blind spots. So terrific, said I. Now, if everybody will just take a pen and a pad and just write down what your own blind spots are, right? Now, there's the problem, because if we knew what they were, then they wouldn't be blind spots, right? So self-awareness is not something that, the average guy in the street has buckets of. They have blind spots, but don't know what they are. And these things are standing in the way, but they don't know how to fix them. So this is kind of, I guess, the biggest thing that we have. So you'll have people who potential is here, they're here. And one of the key ways we're going to close this gap is first to figure out where they are, figure out where they want to be, and then figure out all the speed bumps and pinch points and roadblocks along the way. One of the things we do is we have them do an assessment, but they don't have to do that. What do they have to do? They have to start journaling. They have to start journaling, because journaling is hindsight. And I'll let you know how that works. Let's imagine, do you journal, by the way?
Yes, I'm such a proponent of it. Yep, always talking about the benefits of that.
Brilliant. So years ago, a million years ago, not that CEO that I was talking about earlier, but another one, asked me whether or not I journaled. And at the time I didn't. And he asked me why, and I wasn't entirely sure what to say. So I said, forgive me, but I said, probably because I'm not a 16-year-old Victorian schoolgirl. I couldn't think of any other reason why somebody might want to journal. So he said, well, go and do some research, benefits of journaling, and then come back to me. Go and find the most successful people you can find in any walk of life, whether it's sports or politics or entertainment, any walk of life, and find out whether or not they journal. And I found 8 people, and each of them journaled. And I thought, okay, this is probably not a coincidence, right? So I went back and said, okay, so all right, I'll journal. But I don't know what to write and don't know what to say, and I don't know how often. And that's kind of one of those roadblocks. And we recognize that. And so if anybody jumps on our website, we give them loads of models and just start journaling. But start journaling. Here's what journaling forces you to do. Journaling, doesn't matter what you do, basically just set an intention for the day. Talk about things you're grateful for and all that kind of stuff. It's hard to have a positive life if all you do is to fill it with negative thoughts. But so there's all of that good stuff. But then the real magic comes when at the end of the day, you give yourself some kind of report card where you say, okay, was I glorious in every single regard today? Like if I had would I be A+ in everything I did today? And the likelihood is you're going to go, well, probably at best A-. What that forces you to then do is say, okay, well, what should I have done more of or less of? What shouldn't I have done? What could I have said? What might I have said? And as soon as you start doing that hindsight, you start looking back, that reflective practice where you say, okay, well, I did this, but maybe I could have done this. What happens when you do that with enough density? And I don't mean for years, I mean just a couple of weeks. Your subconscious then starts to, if you do that every day, your subconscious then starts to say, hey, future Antonio will be happier with you. And when I say future Antonio, I just mean, tonight. We'll be happy with you if you make a slightly more handsome fist of this email than the one that you're about to send. And so you then, in the moment, situationally think, okay, if I was going to do this as an A+ response, what would that look like? What that then happens is that hindsight kind of leads to situational foresight so that future Antonio will be happy with you. And you can do this for businesses as well, which then leads to insight. So you can start to see the problems ahead of time, and then that allows you to recite and go in a different way. So journaling is the number one tool that actually doesn't cost very much. You just need one of these and one of these chaps, and just be intentional. Like you were talking about FM Alexander, just be intentional about the person that you want to become. And if one of the things that you want to become is, or you want to better understand where the perfect place for you should be in the universe and what's going to make you happy and close your potential and all of those kind of things. We are complex animals. Start journaling about it, start thinking about it, start mapping it and writing it and drawing it and feeling it. And the universe has a way of making those things happen. You don't know how. If you get stuck on the how, you'll be stuck forever. Just figure out where you want to be and you'll figure out how to get there later.
Yeah, I love that was not just one piece of advice, it was layers of advice within that one piece of advice.
Oh,
Thank you
okay.
for that. And I was also
Good.
hearing, you commented about do write down the gratitude and the positive parts because that's also so important. And then that constructive, I like you said that a while back, the constructive aspect of what we could do better. Just again, just to reiterate, really drive home these points for our listeners. Antonio, there's just been so much chalked into this. What was 30 minutes maybe? Thank you. Where can everyone find you, follow you online?
So just go to mydailyleadership.com and email me, antonio@mydailyleadership.com. Mention this podcast in the subject line, and I promise somebody will get it to me and I'll get back to you within the next kind of 36, 48, 72 hours. So just check out our website, read the book, Amazon, mydailyleadership.com. Just go on to our website, tons and tons of free resources. Even if you never talk to us, just download that stuff. So yeah.
Excellent. And that'll all be in the show notes as well. And there really are a ton of resources on your website. So thank you for that. And thanks so much for being here today. I know you're super busy, so this was a delight.
Thank you. It's been great. Thank you very much. I'll see you soon, I hope.
Thanks so much for listening to Be the Good with Kate Chericello. Whether you're listening on YouTube or via podcast, it would mean the world if you liked, subscribed, and or left a review. You heard about the good? Now go out and be the good in your life this week. If you have stories of good news that need to be shared, please send me a message. Thanks again and have a great week. In taking classes over the years or observing workout videos, one major piece that is often missing: stressing safety and form. Additionally, group fitness classes are often marketed as being open to all levels, yet how often do instructors not give modifications nor progressions so that each participant truly can get what he or she needs out of the class? So that's why I created the 101 series, which take things back to basics with 3 separate courses, Bar 101, Pilates 101, and HIIT 101, focusing on safety and efficiency so you can maximize your workouts. Be confident when you step into a group fitness class or workout on your own. Be strong in your execution of the most common exercises, and be proud of yourself for taking these huge steps forward on your health journey. Check it out at bebykate.com. The link is in the show notes.